Hi and welcome to Watercolor with Sonia. Today I would like to try and do a little bit of this sunset. I have done it a couple of times now in my favorite palette format, but I thought I would try it with a different set of three primaries. This gives all my students the opportunity to see, because they've been in my classes, to see what I did do and that they had the chance to try with me, and now they're going to see a different version of it. So let's begin. What I've done here is I've got a metal tray that I put in alizarin crimson, and this is a Holbein alizarin crimson, I think. Yep. This is a Winsor Newton Winsor blue red shade, which is different because I usually use green shade. And then this is New Gamboge by Winsor Newton as well, I think. Yeah. And New Gamboge tends to be a warmer yellow. So the first thing that I like to do, I'm just going to put the picture right in the center here, is I wanted to just mix my yellow a little bit so I get, and I'm probably looking right now just to see if I can find a scrap piece of paper, here we go, to test out the color. So see how bright and vibrant that is? I want it a little bit more watery. So the yellow is going to go down in the lower section. So I've really tried to already water it down in my palette, but it's still really bright. So I'm going to now add more water. And in the other times that I've done it, I've just tried to keep the yellow down at the 1/3 of the area. I'm just looking now to see, and the sun is actually down here. So a lot of times what you see is the sun kind of comes out like this. So the color is darker just around the outside of the sun, and then you take a piece of tissue paper and you dab out that bit of sun right in there so that you get that feeling of that light coming out and that shaft of light. And then sometimes there's little bits of beautiful, really strong color next to it, around it. Okay, so that's my beginning with my yellows. Then I've cleaned the brush, and I'm going to try with the blue. Hopefully I've cleaned it enough, because what happens is if the yellow's on there, it's going to change to green with my blue shade. So we're trying to get a bit of the blue out. And now this blue shade, you can see how brilliant that is. I do not need a lot. And this is the red Winsor Newton. So look at how lovely that is. And I'm just trying to add in some water so that the darkness is at the top. And this is wet on dry, but because my brush has so much water in it, I don't have to worry. Now, just want to kind of, there's some light areas just in here, so I'm just going to tap that out too, okay? And there's a bit more light in this. I'm going to tap out both areas so it's just much lighter. Okay. Oh, there was a little bit of light up the top here, so let's just do that there. Okay. And maybe another bit just there. All right. So now that we have those two layers, now I can start mixing my alizarin crimson with my New Gamboge to get a really lovely orange or red. So here's that kind of orangey color, or the red color. Could be even the alizarin is right there. Okay, so all of those can work. Now, if I put the red in, because there was a hint of that orangey, now that's really strong. Well, let me bring that up a bit. And it's now separating into the different colors based on the yellow that's there. So I can move that around a bit, and I can make that more interesting. It's all really wet right now, so I find that that streak is just a bit too much. So I'm just going to dab in and lighten that up a bit. Okay. So this is very wet, and it's not working exactly the way I would like it to. So I'm going to try again. And I'm going to try a different brush. I have a few brushes here. I just want to see. The reason I want to try a different brush is because what's happening, if it's not synthetic, it takes a lot of water, and it's going to take away and make it so wet that I can't function with it properly. It's going to get too, look at how that's spreading. It's going to look great later, but it's spreading too much and too quickly that I'm not going to have any control over it. This is still wet enough, as you can see. I've just put my fingers in it. So if I put a little bit on a brush, here's what happens. See, I have a bit more control this way. so I can put in some of the nice lines. And if I find that that's not enough for what I'm trying to achieve, I can always come in afterwards and put a little bit of water around it. So let's try and put some of that, and let's add a little bit of alizarin crimson with a little bit more water on it. So the alizarin crimson with water on it will be very dark, but as I get lighter and lighter, it's going to get much more pinkish, okay? And I can actually use that right where I want some of these pinks coming in. Look at that. That's just nice. And some of those oranges can come just down. Oh, well, that's pink. Let's put a little bit of orange in there. And just drop that in a little bit and up in here a bit. Let's add a little bit of yellow to it. Let's hope that it doesn't turn green. Let's try that out. Okay. And there were streaks coming over here. Let's get a little bit more of that red. There we go. And it was really glowy around here, so I've got to be careful that and you see it's really dry there, so it's not getting diffused at all like it did over here. So I can just add some water and then just get it a little bit diffused so that it kind of looks more natural. That's starting to diffuse. Now I could always add a bit more yellow on top of that because it'll turn more orangey. And it's quite wet, so that's great because now I'm getting more of that feeling that I want. That right in there. It's going to end up being a bit gray. Let's go back to my pink and put in some more pink in here. Now there was some really nice dark yellow right up in this area. This is quite almost pure pigment right here. There are hints here too, a little bit. Could try and lift just a bit more out here, that's it. Okay, let's go back to my alizarin crimson and get some of those nice little pinks in there. Now that's maybe too strong. So let's soften that up a bit. And it's turning a bit purplish with the reddish blue that I've got there. That's good, I want that. Go back and try and get a little bit more. Just trying to get that right consistency. So what I'm doing is I'm actually taking it and lifting off of my scrap that I tested out, and I'm just trying to add it in there. And if you notice where the blue-red is and it's still wet, it's now starting to give me that kind of a mauve-ish, purpley kind of look, which is actually great. And it's starting to lift in some areas here as I apply that. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so I'm going to now lift some blue here and see what happens here if I add the blue in. Okay, so the blue is not really what I'm looking for. So I'm going to now mix that blue with the red for purple. Let's see how that, aha, yeah, that looks good. So let's get some of that nice. But that's a bit strong and not necessarily the grayish kind of color that I'm looking for. But hey, we're just trying it out. We want to see what appears, and then we can always darken it later. So let's just soften all that up. Let that mix a bit in here. Because that purple with the yellow will go gray. So let's see if it does when I just apply it in there. It's not quite enough, so I want to try something first. I'm going to try and put the yellow over top of the purple here. See what happens. Oh, it's kind of gone muddy brown. Greenish even. So not quite what I expected. Now if I add another bit of blue to it, now it's going green. So it's exactly what I would be doing if I was mixing on my palette to try and get that gray, because now I finally get a little bit more gray. But look at all those colors in between. That's not really kind of what I'm looking for. So I'm going to go to my mixture that I have pre-made that is gray. Or I can first lift that off, and it won't be so bad to get that gray in there. There we go. And so that gray comes down here, and it's turning a little bit more brown because of the yellow. So let's see if I add a little bit of blue in there, what happens. Get some more green maybe. Because I was saying to everybody, put in a little bit of the darks at the base, but be careful because it's so easy just to go dab, 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 and the next thing you have these dots that aren't really what you want. Okay, now I'm going to go over here with my purplish gray-blue mixture. Oh, I just went too red. A little bit more yellow in there. And I'm going to try now and add some of the grays into this side. So that even, it was just under the tips of the clouds there at the top, kind of in between the yellows. So I'm going to add a little bit more. Oh, I just got too much blue. See, that's turning green. Not exactly what I was looking for. So I'm going to soften it out and see if I can get that little bit better effect, or I have to go back to my gray here. It could be green too, I'm not sure. Yeah, it looks pretty gray. Green. Not exactly what I wanted. And I do have a lot of green in here, so that would explain it. So green and red make gray. So I'm just remixing all my green and red here and trying to get my gray back. A little bit of yellow. I've got more brown, a little bit more blue. And I think we're almost there. Let's try that. Yeah, okay. So in different areas that can be just streaked across. You can always lighten it up a bit. See what I was talking about with a dabbing? Kind of try and keep it watery, and it'll do more when it's watery like that, and I can just get some lights into there. Here I'm going to lighten it up just a bit. It's a bit dark. And then I'll add in a bit more gray. Here I'm going to add definitely more gray, but I like a little bit bluer gray. So far, every time I do the blue-gray, I'm getting more. There we go, that's it. Just getting more of other stuff. So I'm just going to add the water in here now. Just get that in between the blue, around by the whites here. Okay, that doesn't really look like a cloud, so let's try and get that feeling of cloud by doing more circly processes. And I think that's why it was hard for everybody, because I'm tending to dab instead of doing kind of a circular movement, so you can think about how the clouds are actually puffy and circular. Let's try and get some in here. Find that color again. There we go. And then up in here. I don't want to lose all that nice pinks and stuff that I have. Okay. So down here there were some really nice little streaks in here. So we're just going to just put some of those streaks in. Even down here. They're further away. This is closer up. And then even here, just a little bit. Okay. Just under a bit. Okay, I can also soften those up a bit. I've just added some water to the brush. But be careful, because see how much that travels so quickly and makes so much color. Okay. Now I'm going to come in with a little bit more red, but you know, red that's been kind of mixed up a bit more, so it's not quite so strong. Okay. And again, dropping it into all these areas. You can do more red or orange or yellow. But you see, be careful with the brush that it's not full of gray, otherwise you're going to get grayish red, and the color is, you're going to lose the color. See, that's pretty strong. bit here, a bit more in here, more red in here. There was just a bit up here, pinkish. Okay, so I'm not so happy with this. I'm going to lighten it up a bit. And there was a couple of little darky, puffy clouds just around this area. There's also a little hint of the sun actually setting in here, which I didn't seem to capture very well. So I'm taking some of the and just trying to get a little bit more of that yellow right in around this area. Okay. Now, there was definitely buildings down here. I'm not so sure I want to actually add buildings in here because the black really tends to make it difficult to gauge where the sky is and stuff. Oh, I can put a little bit of pink in here a bit more. That's it. Some pink in there a bit more. Soften that up. I'll get a little bit more pink up here. And so the only thing I would do now in all of this is maybe tidy up my circle here a bit. Is to put in some highlights with the grays, because there was definitely some nice darks. Just finding my gray again and just trying to maybe make that swirl. Think about the depth. And there's also under the belly, if there is, you know, really dark, it's reflecting up maybe, or that's reflecting down, getting it really dark. That's still quite wet, and so that's why that's not really adding that much into it. Let me see somewhere else up here. Let's add some more darks into here. Anyway, don't want too much dark, but you want to create that stormy kind of, this could be rain, this could be a exciting, different sky going on. Maybe the clouds are passing. There's a bit more streaky over here. Just going to add a bit of water with that. Trying to get my color, make sure I've got the gray because I'm almost out of my color now. And it's starting to look a little bit more brownish magenta. A little bit more in here. Let's soften that just a bit with the water in the brush and just kind of let it glow along. And is there anything else? There were these little low level clouds down here that were also gray that I never put into the picture. I put in some building actually. So this could actually be a little bit bluer. Find some of that blue again. Let's see if I can, without making it too green. This would have been better to leave no yellow in and then just put the blue in, because it's really did turn green. So, how to fix that? We're going to go with the purplish color a bit that I have. Try and go over there. That. Still going to be kind of greenish. There was just some little clouds. They were also catching a little bit of the rays. So we'll bring them down just in here a bit. Pull it down a bit. Now that blue is not water, that blue is the back of my pad. A couple little places in here that were just little. They weren't birds or anything. There weren't little balloons up there or something, so be careful that you don't end up making that impression. And they tend to be a little bit softer, wispier back there. Here they were still a little bit darker. Okay, I think we've captured it. That's our sunset. So once this dries, if you feel that there are a couple of places that you'd like to just dab in a bit more, you can. Just to get those a little bit so dark in there. Again, maybe stroke a little bit more rather than dabbing. Add a little bit, maybe a smaller brush even. Let's try a smaller brush. I have a small one. I think that's a one. Yeah, it's a Winsor Newton Kolinsky. So I'm actually going to put a little water in there and let that kind of push it around a bit. That helps to darken it a bit. Do the same here. Push that up with a little bit of water. Get some interesting water blooms in there. And now come back and get some of the dark and see if I can't get that a little darker. There we go. Don't want it too wet because what'll happen, it won't even capture the dark. So anywhere that's not wet, it will actually maybe then pull into the wet. You get a little bit more of that dark effect. Let's put a little bit in here. See how that nice and dark here because it's a smaller brush and it's dry. So we do the same in here. Just get a bit of darks in there. Maybe a little bit down here. Just really fine. If you're going to do really, really fine. And I didn't capture any really dark area up there. I'm going to go back to the other brush. This is a smaller 4 synthetic and just soften that up a bit. Add a bit more up here. And then I saw a little bit more. I've got some nice pink. I'll get just a tiny bit more. I don't know what it's going to turn out like. I may have already... There we go. Nothing wrong with experimenting a couple times to see how those pinks do. How they change into more oranges because you've got already the yellow underneath. Try once more. That's a bit too red. Ooh, I just did a nice happy accidents. Now let's just pop that in there and lighten that up. Get some over here so it kind of doesn't just sit there. Let's do a little bit more in here. Now, if I try to put the new gamboge over top, we were noticing today that some of that yellow will actually move, but the Hansa seems to be better for this because it will sit on top and create some nice colors. It also moves away some of the other color too, so you can certainly play around with that, add in more of that yellow and see what happens here to get more of that glow that we see in the pattern on the actual picture. There we go. And there's your sunset. So I hope that helped you to see a little bit more of the process here. Let's put it like this so you can actually see it. There we go. Thank you for watching.